It didn't begin in the kitchen. It began in court. The county courtroom in Riverton looked like a set dressing for a scene no one wanted to admit was real. Too clean. Too quiet. The wood panels gleamed like they were afraid to absorb the words spoken inside them. No dust, no cracks, no history. Just the hollow echo of endings in a room that pretended it had no memory of sorrow. Amanda sat on the other side of the aisle, her legs crossed. Her lips painted that same shade of red she used for weddings and funerals. She hadn't looked at me once since entering the room. Not even when the bailiff called our names. Not even when the judge stepped in. I remember watching the way she held her jaw, the slight lift of her chin, like she was posing for a camera no one else could see. Like this wasn't the collapse of a 21-year marriage, but a photo opportunity for a victory she thought had already been won. Her lawyer rose first. I didn't recognize him. Young, sharp, clearly expensive. The kind of man who smiled without warmth, all teeth and ambition. He adjusted his cuffs before speaking, like his performance depended on the starch in his shirt. "Your Honor," he began. "This will be straightforward. My client is seeking a clean and fair separation of assets. She has been the primary caregiver, the emotional backbone of this family." And then Amanda cut him off. No warning, no cue. Just leaned into her microphone and said it like she'd rehearsed it in front of the mirror every night for a week. "He's just a useless husband, a complete waste of space." There it was. It landed like a brick in a glass room. Sharp, deliberate, and loud enough to draw chuckles from the back row. Maybe some cousin on her side. Maybe a friend from her office. People who never saw what went on behind closed doors. People who'd never lifted a finger to help. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I just stared at the judge, because I had learned long ago that reacting to Amanda was a losing game. She thrived on it, on the spectacle, the provocation, the drama. Every fight we ever had ended the same way, with her triumphant in volume and me defeated in silence. So I gave her none of what she wanted. Her lawyer stumbled for a second, flashed a tight smile, tried to steer it back. "What my client means to say." The judge raised his hand, a slow gesture, like he was tired of the noise, and then he looked directly at Amanda. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Are you sure you understand who you're dealing with?" Just like that. The room froze. Amanda's face changed. Her confidence slipped. Not completely, but enough for the people closest to her to notice. Her lawyer went pale, suddenly aware he might have walked her into a fight she wasn't ready for. Me? I sat still. Not because I was brave, but because I didn't need to move. Because in that moment, I realized something no one else in the room had considered. They had underestimated me. All of them. They thought I'd come here to be humiliated, to be quietly stripped of everything while Amanda spun a narrative about her selfless martyrdom and my so-called failure as a man. They thought I'd play the fool one last time, that I'd let her finish what she'd been doing in private for years, erasing me. But I wasn't here to fight. I wasn't even here to win. I was here to let the truth speak for itself. The judge flipped through the documents like they were heavier than paper, his brows knit tighter with every page. I didn't look over. I already knew what he was reading. He was reading my silence. He was reading the years I spent putting her through law school while working 2 jobs. The years I paid the mortgage, the taxes, the medical bills. The years Amanda took credit for our home, her career, our vacations, while I poured myself into the bones of our life and asked for nothing in return. He was reading the trust account I built when her daughter was still young. Money Amanda claimed came from a family inheritance. He was reading the property deeds, the bank statements, the LLCs I had quietly set up to hold what I'd earned. All in my name. All with the precision of a man who had known, even back then, that love could turn. They thought I was just the funding. They thought I'd walk into that courtroom like I walked through our house for years. Half present, half defeated, grateful to be tolerated. But I had stopped being grateful. I had stopped mistaking endurance for love. And as the judge read my records into the silence Amanda had once owned, I watched her world start to shrink. Not dramatically, not like a TV drama with gasps and finger-pointing, but slowly, fatally, like watching a roof collapse one crack at a time. Her side asked for a break. Her lawyer requested clarification. The whispers in the courtroom grew louder, faces turning toward me with a new kind of curiosity. Who is this man? What had they missed? I knew what they'd missed. They missed the nights I drove delivery until midnight to cover her tuition, while she told friends I was figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. They missed the vacation I skipped so she could fly to her sister's wedding and still have money left for a dress. They missed the years I poured into a daughter who never once called me dad, who rolled her eyes every time I reminded her to lock the front door or put gas in her car. They missed the way Amanda took credit for everything and blame for nothing. The way she crafted a story where she was the one holding the family together while I was just there, useless, a waste of space. So when the judge looked up, paused, and asked Amanda's lawyer to reevaluate the basis of the claims, I didn't smile. I didn't need to. The audience she had hoped would cheer for her had gone quiet. And the mask she wore, the one she'd kept polished and perfect for years, was beginning to crack under the weight of facts. In that courtroom, for the first time, Amanda wasn't in control, and I didn't have to raise my voice to take it back. The break lasted 15 minutes. Amanda didn't look at me once. She sat hunched over her lawyer's iPad, scrolling, whispering, her hand flitting to her mouth in a tremble she didn't realize was visible. Her lawyer kept his voice low, but I caught enough. Did you know about this? Why didn't you mention the trust? You told me the business was in your name. They were unraveling in real time. Every lie she told him, about her being the breadwinner, about me being some passive, drifting man she tolerated out of pity, was collapsing under the ink of notarized documents and a decade of receipts. The judge returned, took his seat, and called us back to order. I stood calmly, adjusted my jacket, and walked to the witness stand without being asked. My lawyer, a man I had chosen precisely for his silence and surgical efficiency, gave me the briefest nod. We had already spoken. He knew what I wanted. I wasn't here for vengeance. I wasn't here to shame her. I was here to be done. Mr. Rhodes, the judge began, glancing again at the files. Would you like to make a statement before we proceed? I looked across the aisle. Amanda's face was blank now. Not angry, not smug, just blank, like she hadn't decided yet how to react. That was her talent, adapting. She wore victimhood like silk, letting it shift to fit the moment. I waited a beat longer before answering. No, Your Honor. I believe the documents speak for themselves. He nodded, satisfied. Very well. Let's proceed. And so they did. Not with fire or raised voices. Not with scandal or spectacle. But with math. Cold, simple, indisputable. Income ratios. Ownership percentages. Legal guardianship. Each item pulled from the files like a stone laid on a scale. And the weight, at last, tipped in my favor. Amanda's side began to stall. Her lawyer called for another recess, denied. He asked the judge to consider Amanda's emotional investment in the marriage, denied. He mentioned her role as a mother and partner, acknowledged, then redirected to the evidence, because the facts did not care about narrative. And when the judge finally declared that the assets in question, 3 properties, a business account, 2 investment portfolios, were legally and solely under my name, Amanda exhaled like she'd been hit. There was no outburst, no denial, just a slow collapse in posture. Her shoulders caved in, her fingers dug into her lap, and in that moment, I realized she had believed it all. Her version of it, that I was weak, that I'd fold, that I would let her walk out with half of everything I had built, and maybe more, that I wouldn't defend what was mine. She had forgotten who I was, or maybe she never knew. Amanda's attorney leaned toward her, whispered something. She shook her head. That's when the words came. This wasn't supposed to go like this, she muttered. Not to the judge, not to me, just out loud, like a confession whispered to a ghost. This wasn't supposed to go like this. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I remembered when she first used those words years ago when her daughter, Emily, crashed the car I bought with overtime money. Amanda had said the same thing, staring at the wreckage. This wasn't supposed to go like this. She had said it like the accident had betrayed her personally, like the universe owed her better. It was always about betrayal with Amanda. She saw herself as the victim no matter what. Even now, even here, as though the truth arriving too late was some kind of injustice. And still, I didn't feel triumph. I felt something else. Not anger, not even relief, just clarity. Because as Amanda sat there, watching the empire she thought she controlled slip through her fingers, something shifted inside me. Not just the decision to end it. That had already been made. No, this was something deeper. A final silence. A severing. For years, I thought the quiet in our marriage was just exhaustion. The kind that settles in after too many long days, too many bills, too many things left unsaid. But it wasn't exhaustion. It was dismissal. I had been erased 1 year at a time. Started small. Decisions made without asking. Conversations that ended the moment I entered the room. Holidays where her side of the family spoke in past tense about her first marriage and used the word step like it meant lesser. 1,000 slights, paper thin but sharp, each one drawing blood I never acknowledged. And the worst part? I let it happen. I told myself I was being patient, supportive, a good husband. I thought if I just kept showing up, if I kept the lights on and the rent paid and the yard mowed and the fridge full, that eventually I'd earn a place in the story. That Amanda would stop looking through me. That Emily would stop comparing me to the man who left them. I was wrong. You don't earn space in someone else's story. They either write you in or they don't. So that day in the courtroom I made my decision. Not in words, not even in expression, but deep inside. A final, irreversible turn. The divorce would continue, but not as a compromise, not as a negotiation. On my terms. Quiet, firm, complete. My lawyer moved through the rest of the filing with mechanical precision. Division of assets. Spousal support declined. Custody not applicable. Finalization date requested. Amanda didn't object. Not anymore. The wind had gone out of her campaign. She knew now that she hadn't been fighting an ex-husband. She'd been fighting a man who had already left her years ago. Emotionally, quietly, surgically, and now legally. When the session ended, I stood up, buttoned my coat, and nodded to the judge. He returned it. A brief, unreadable glance, but one that carried weight. Recognition. Not sympathy, not favor. Just a quiet acknowledgement that in a world full of noise, silence can still speak volumes. I walked past Amanda without looking at her. But she spoke anyway. Michael. I stopped, halfway to the door. Not out of respect. Not even out of curiosity. Just to hear, once, what she would say when the spotlight finally faded. You could have told me, she said. About the accounts. About the titles. We could have... She trailed off. We could have what? Started over? Made a deal? Split what you thought was mine? I didn't answer, because there was no answer left. She had built a stage for her version of the truth. But she forgot who installed the lights, who paid for the floor beneath her feet, who kept the theater open when no one was watching. So I walked out, not as the villain she had painted, not as the fool they expected, just a man no longer interested in proving he mattered. I didn't go back to the house that day. After the courtroom emptied and Amanda's storm cloud drifted off in a whirlwind of hushed phone calls and redirected rage, I got in the truck and just drove. I didn't have a plan. No destination. Just miles. Just silence. The kind that fills the chest like smoke after a fire. Heavy, poisonous, strangely sacred. I stopped at a diner an hour out of Rivwharton. Sat in a booth with cracked vinyl. Ordered coffee I didn't want and a burger I didn't finish. The waitress asked if I was all right. I told her I was fine. I wasn't. But I wasn't broken either. I was waking up. It's strange what lingers after a war. Not the noise. The quiet that follows. The part where the gunfire stops and you're left holding a rifle you don't remember picking up. That's what the courthouse felt like. The end of something I didn't fully understand until it was over. For years, Amanda told the story of our marriage like it was a burden she carried. To friends, to coworkers, to her family. Especially to her family. I was the man who didn't try hard enough. The stepfather who wasn't engaged enough. The partner who never understood her potential. What she never said, what they never knew, was how much of that potential I paid for. The business she started? My loan. The car she drove to networking events? My down payment. The paralegal certification she got before law school? I filled out the FAFSA forms for her and quietly paid what the grants didn't cover. Every milestone she reached, I was in the background, invisible scaffolding. I carried the load she called independence, and I never asked for recognition, just presence. A place at the table. But by the time I stepped back into our house that evening, technically mine now, I knew the truth. There had never been a seat for me. The living room was exactly how we left it 3 weeks ago, when Amanda moved into her sister's condo to clear her head. Pillows fluffed, framed family photos on the shelves, my boots still by the door, on the mantel. A picture of Amanda and Emily, arms wrapped around each other, grinning in some orchard. I'd taken that photo, but you wouldn't know it. I didn't exist in any of the frames, just like in her story. The next morning I started packing, not because I had to. The judge had ruled the Lakewood property mine, and Amanda's name wasn't on the title. But I didn't want it anymore. The walls knew too much. The bed whispered lies. The kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd cooked every dinner for the last 15 years, felt like a crime scene. Every plate still in the cabinet was a relic of a life I thought was shared. I sold the house in 2 weeks. Fast. Cash offer. Didn't haggle. Didn't look back. Word got around quick. Riverton was small. Amanda's version of events, that I blindsided her, that I plotted the financial arrangements like some villain in a custody drama, didn't last long. People asked questions. Why was everything in his name? Why hadn't she contested? Why did she walk away with nothing? Truth doesn't need marketing. It just waits. Her family stopped calling. The invitations, dinners, birthdays, Sunday brunches I never wanted to attend, vanished. Amanda's sister unfriended me on social media. Her cousin posted something vague about men who weaponize money. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. What they didn't understand was that I didn't want revenge. I wanted silence. Amanda tried once. A message weeks after the hearing. We were partners. You didn't have to do this like a stranger. Stranger? I'd been a stranger in that house for years. She just finally noticed. I left the message on read. Not out of cruelty. Out of finality. When you scream into someone's silence for long enough and they never answer, it becomes easy to believe they're not listening. What Amanda never understood was that I heard everything. Every snide comment, every exclusion, every time she said, "He doesn't really get it," at a party while I stood 10 feet away. I got it. I just didn't agree. Emily sent a message too. 3 sentences. No greeting. You didn't have to screw my mom over. I hope the money keeps you warm. She was 20 by then, studying sociology, posting about justice and empowerment between sushi photos. I had helped with the tuition forms, paid the first year's rent, co-signed the student loan. She didn't mention any of that. I didn't reply. I deleted the message, because that was the last thread, and I'd already cut it. You spend enough time in someone else's story, and you start to forget your own. You start to believe that maybe you are the background, that maybe your value is in being quiet, steady, forgettable. But silence isn't weakness. It's waiting. And eventually the bill comes due. Amanda tried to stay in Lakewood for a while. Rumor was she applied for a job at her old firm. Didn't get it. Maybe the new partners remembered her differently than she remembered herself. Maybe the economy just wasn't kind to mid-level hires with burned bridges. Whatever it was, she didn't last. Last I heard, she moved to Denver. Emily dropped out of her program a semester later. Something about mental health. Amanda's sister posted a photo of them at a pumpkin patch. All smiles. No trace of me. That's fine. Because I didn't leave to be remembered. I left to remember who I was before I became furniture in someone else's home. I bought a cabin in Idaho. Remote. Quiet. Not a postcard. Not some picturesque second act where I learned to love again and grew a beard and took up fishing. No, it's colder than I like. The roof leaks when the snow gets heavy, and the neighbors are dear in silence. But it's mine. Every floorboard. Every creak. And every night I sleep under that roof, I remember what Amanda forgot. I wasn't the man she tolerated. I was the man who built the life she stood on. And when she stepped off, when she leapt into whatever freedom she thought she deserved, I didn't chase her. I didn't shout. I just removed the floor. I don't get many calls anymore. Not from people who knew me during the marriage. Not from Amanda's circle, the brunch group with their endless career ladders and curated heartbreaks. Not from Emily. Certainly not from Amanda. The only number that shows up now is the propane delivery guy, and he only talks when he's warning me about snow drifts on the road to the ridge. It's quiet up here. Not the kind of quiet you notice at first. No, this one takes time. It's layered. Deep. The kind that crawls under your skin and waits for you to face it. I came here because I wanted silence. What I didn't expect was how loud it would be. You strip away the distractions. The dinner parties, the passive-aggressive texts, the birthdays where you're thanked out of obligation, and all you're left with is the raw weight of memory. And memory doesn't pull punches. Some nights I sit by the fire and think about the day I moved in with Amanda. Not because I miss her. I don't. Not anymore. But because I want to remember what it felt like to believe in the future. I was younger then, obviously. Dumber, too. Thought love meant showing up, staying quiet, taking the hit when it came. That's the lie men like me are fed. That strength is endurance. That you prove your worth by how much you can take. So I took it. I took the eye rolls, the dismissals, the nights I made dinner while they forgot to tell me they were going out. I took the times Amanda said, "He's just tired," when Emily asked why I didn't speak much at family gatherings. Like I was a pet recovering from surgery. I took the birthdays that passed without a gift. The anniversaries remembered too late. The long silences when I needed her to just say something kind and got a list of what I forgot instead. And each time I swallowed it. Because I thought that's what commitment looked like. But commitment without reciprocity is captivity. I see that now. I see it in the way my hands shake less. In the way I no longer startle at the sound of a door slamming. In the way I don't brace myself when the phone rings, expecting bad news or worse. Amanda's voice, asking for one last favor. There were always favors. The "can you get the car looked at?" That turned into 4 hours at the mechanic and $300 gone. The "Emily needs help with her FAFSA," that came with an expectation, not a thank you. The "my mother's birthday is next week," tossed out like a grenade. And I'd pick up the pieces. Always. Because if I didn't, who would? Todd? That's what made it worse. The shadow of him. Emily's father in name only. He'd show up once a year, gift in hand, grin wide, talking about how busy he was, how crazy things were at work. Amanda would smile like she didn't notice the lies. Emily would light up like he had walked out of a storybook. And me? I'd be in the kitchen, carving the turkey I paid for, setting plates for a man who wouldn't stay long enough to wash one. They looked at him like he was a father. They looked at me like I was the help. And still I stayed. Why? Because I thought love would catch up. That one day Emily would see. That Amanda would sit me down, thank me, tell me she was sorry for all the times she made me feel small. That she didn't mean it. That she knew. That she always knew. She never did. Even at the end. Even after the court. After the reveal. After I left the ashes of our life behind. She never once said she was sorry. Not really. She said I didn't have to do it like a stranger. She said we could have worked something out. But that was just another version of control. Even in defeat, Amanda wanted to be the one to define the ending. She didn't get to. I did. And that's the lesson I want to pass on. Not to Amanda, not to Emily, not to the people who stood by and watched me fade. But to anyone who thinks endurance is enough. Who thinks that if you just wait long enough, give enough, love enough, the people who overlook you will suddenly see you. They won't. People don't see what they think they already own. And I was owned. Not legally. Not with chains. But with expectation. With obligation. with guilt. I was the man who paid for everything and expected nothing in return. Until one day I expected silence. And I earned it. Up here. In this crooked cabin with a stove that doesn't always light and a porch that groans under the weight of snow. I finally understand the cost of freedom. It's not money. It's not time. It's the willingness to be misunderstood. Because when I left Amanda, I didn't give a speech. I didn't write a letter. I didn't explain myself to her or to Emily or to anyone who asked. I just walked away. And they made up their own version of the story. He betrayed her. He always resented her success. He wanted power. He was never really there for them. They needed that version. Because the real one, that I loved them deeply and left anyway, was too hard to hold. But I hold it. Every day. And it's lighter than it used to be. I chop my own firewood now. I fix my own roof. I cook for one and I clean for no one. And when I look in the mirror, I see a man who finally stepped out of the role he was assigned and claimed the life he was owed. Not a happy life. Not always. But an honest one. The phone rang yesterday. I almost didn't answer. But I recognized the area code. It was Rivorton. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. It was Emily. She didn't introduce herself. Didn't say hello. Just launched right in. I heard you're living in Idaho. I said nothing. She waited. Then added, Mom's not doing well. I stayed silent. She sighed. She says you won't return her calls. I let the quiet stretch. Let her feel it. Finally, she said it. She misses you. I almost laughed. Misses me? No. She misses the man who paid for her life. Who stood in the background while she played the lead. Who stayed up late filling out financial aid forms while she told friends she was a single mother. I said, Is that all? Emily paused. She wanted me to ask if you'd consider talking, just once. I looked out the window at the snow-covered pine trees, the way the light hit them, soft, pure, blinding. And I said, Tell her I wish her well. Emily didn't respond. Then she hung up. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt finished. There's a quote I read once, scratched into the wall of an old gas station bathroom of all places. You don't owe peace to the people who gave you war. I live by that now. Amanda gave me war, and I gave her silence. So I'll ask you this, whoever's listening. Maybe you're in your own marriage, your own silence, your own war. How much are you carrying that isn't yours? How much have you paid, with time, with money, with pieces of yourself you'll never get back, for people who only saw your value when the bill arrived? And if you walked away just once, would the world fall apart? Or would it finally begin? You tell me, was I wrong to leave? Was I cruel to stay silent? Or did I finally, after all those years, make the only choice that made me a man again? You decide.